Where are we?
This is Mark McNeese in New York City, and you're listening to another edition of Live Mic with Mark. Welcome to the podcast, everybody. This is Mark, and I am already on the phone with my guest for the podcast this week. It's Robert Levithan. Robert, how are you?
I'm very well, thank you, Mark.
And we were talking briefly before we started. We're both in New York City. I'm near Gramercy Park.
I'm down in Soho, so we're not too far away.
Okay, no, not far at all. Now, I'll start out by saying I really appreciated that you let me post your column. I read it at the Huffington Post. Actually, a friend sent it to me, and it was. You've done quite a bit of writing for them and a lot of other places, but it was Outliving Ourselves, Long-Term Survivors of AIDS Come Together. So I was able to run that at LGBTSR, and then I reached out to you and asked if you had 20 minutes for this, and you did. So I really, really appreciate that.
Well, it's a pleasure, and it's an honor. I mean, I'm privileged to do what I do, to get to work with people who are dealing with the big issues in life. How do we cope with them?
Well, looking at your bio, there's pretty much nothing you don't do. You do an awful lot. I don't know how much of it you still do, but you danced in the movie Hair for Twyla Tharp. You performed with Robert Wilson under the direction of Roman Polanski, and you drove a New York City taxi. And now you're a therapist and a columnist.
Now I'm a psychotherapist. I'm a writer, and I also do design consultation. And I was the design shrink, writing for Oprah for a while, and I'm working on 2 design projects right now. The way I like to put it is, on a good day, I'm a Renaissance man. On a bad day, I'm a dilettante.
What is a design? Well, I mean, maybe it's self-evident, but a design consultant.
Well, I work with people. The column I wrote was the design shrink, and so it's approaching design from the psychological, emotional needs of the client first, not the space layout. You know, what's the next chapter in your life, and how do you want to live? And then let's work on creating the space, or finding the space that will give you the sort of the launching pad for the next chapter of your life.
Well, I really like that. I could use one. Although I think to some extent I've been my own design consultant, because I relate to spaces and what they do for me and to me emotionally. Mm-hmm.
Some of us are very sensitive to the space we're in and what's in the surroundings. I'm definitely one of those people. So. Mm-hmm. And this work came out of the fact that I've always done my own spaces, and people were asking me to please help them with theirs. And at a certain point, I had to say that, I can't do it unless you pay me. So it became another professional outlet.
I want to ask you about Friends In Deed.
Yes.
I was there a long time ago. There was I was seeing I guess you'd call him a therapist, but it was much more Eastern. We did mindful walking, and I remember going to Friends In Deed one Saturday and doing...
Yes, Samuel Kirshner.
Oh, you know him.
You were doing moving meditation with Samuel, yes.
Oh, yeah.
Samuel was the first person who invited me to actually do facilitation of groups back in the 80s.
Oh, wow. That is him.
Yes.
So can you tell our listeners about Friends In Deed and your involvement with it and what it is?
Friends In Deed is a crisis center. We have a wonderful loft in Soho, on Broadway, just below Howson Street, and it was created in 1991 by Cynthia O'Neill and Mike Nichols as a response to AIDS. It was a place where people could come to deal with the emotional issues, and particularly the issues of dealing with a diagnosis, living with the illness, and also grief and caregiving. So we work with people who are caregiving, and also when people had lost someone. In our early days, our clientele was mostly people dealing with HIV and their families and friends. And over the years, we broadened the scope, and we work with people dealing with cancer, other life-threatening illnesses, grief, and caregiving. We have drop-in groups, seminars, workshops, crisis counseling, Everything is free, and you can check it out at our website, friendsindeed.org. And we've been, as I say, been there since 1991. I literally just walked in the door a few minutes ago. I was leading a group as part of our long-term survivors program. This is our second iteration of the program. We were funded by the Elton John AIDS Foundation, and this is a program so far it's only been for men, but it will be for women eventually as well, who have lived for many years with HIV and AIDS, and the issues of aging, of surviving and outliving the prediction of when most of us thought we would be gone.
I was at about 3 weeks ago. I got invited to the LGBT Elder Housing Summit, and there was a gentleman there who talked about specific needs and obstacles that need to be addressed for people who are getting older with HIV. Mm-hmm. I can't paraphrase what he said, but it was something that I should have been aware of it, but I don't think people always understand that there are unique issues.
Well, there are some unique health issues in the sense that for a lot of people, HIV seems to have accelerated the aging process. Mm-hmm. So there are a lot of people in their 50s and 60s who have some of the issues that people generally have in their 70s and 80s. So there's that factor. And then there's also the factor that there's a large population of people whose lives were interrupted by HIV and AIDS. People who were often, some of us were very ill, and some of us weren't, but a lot of people who the people who were ill stopped working at a certain point, their careers were interrupted, and so a lot of people have financial issues because they've been living on disability for years, or they had careers that they left and then it's hard to get back into the market after a certain point. So it's a population that has some particular challenges. And there are, of course, people in the population who are having great lives and have found their way. And those of us who that's true of, I'm happy to say I consider myself one of those people. We also can be a resource and support our brothers and sisters who AIDS really did take a bigger toll on their lives.
Mm-hmm. I want to ask you now about the New 60, your book.
Yes.
Which I didn't realize came out of columns for the Advocate.
Yes, I wrote a column for the Advocate for 18 months, starting on my 59th birthday, which was to write about what it meant to me to be approaching 60, which was something, I guess, a little backstory for anyone who's listening who doesn't know who I am. I tested positive in 1984 as part of a study, so I was actually tested before the test was available for the general public, and I had a feeling I was already an activist in the AIDS community by that point and involved, and so that was an era when nobody basically would have ever predicted that I would be celebrating my 60th birthday in 2011. Mm-hmm. How would I get there? And I did. And so as I approached it, I thought, wow, I guess I have to start looking at what does this mean. And I have a sense of gratitude about aging that often people don't, because the fact that I'm here is amazing. And so I don't see it as a penalty. Sometimes people feel like getting older is something that they're suffering with. I think of, wow, this privilege I have. So I decided to write about looking at 60 from a new point of view. And it's also about the idea of, a new 60. Let's do 60 in a new way. Mm-hmm. Some of us are doing 60 the way our parents did 40 or 50. We're reinventing aging in the 21st century. So that's looking at. But it's also about survival. How do you get through all this stuff? And it was what showed up in my life for 18 months. Mm-hmm. I didn't know that I was going to experience a suicide, a death of friends. I'd be turned down by a co-op board, just whatever the things are. And then it's like, okay, now I get to look at this.
Well, that resonates a lot with me, because I started the website that I do 4 years ago because I the biggest thing, the refrain I've heard most often from aging LGBT people is that they feel invisible. They feel like the culture just starts to sort of erase them. and I wanted to not do that. I'm not going to be erased. I'm not getting off the stage. I'm not taking up anybody's space but my own, and it's mine until I'm finished. So that's was that, but I had a real sense of being privileged to keep living, because like you and like all of us in this generation, I'll be 57 in October. So many of my friends didn't get old.
That's right.
They didn't have that opportunity. So yeah, I mean, there's stuff about it that I'm not crazy about. I mean, that's just part of the process. But I really consider it an honor to at least have the opportunity to go through it.
Absolutely. Absolutely. We have this idea that we have a shelf life, and so to realize I don't have a shelf life, and like, wow, I do get to do this thing. And there's some of it's not fun. I realize that I get to deal with aging parents and the deaths of people I know, and a lot of things that I would have been let off the hook if I had died young. But hey, the alternative is much more interesting, to be around to deal with these things.
Now I'm going to ask you one question. I know that I'm not paying you for a session, but I'm just here's something. It's the one thing that I haven't quite figured out how to deal with as 60 comes toward me, is the sense that I'm running out of time. On the one hand, it motivates me because there are things I want to do, things that I'm determined to get done. But on the other hand, I would like to just not think of it that way. I don't want to think of it as I'm running out of time, so I've got to write this book and I've got to get this done and that done. I haven't been able to find the release to just let it go.
Well, I guess it's looking for a balance, is what I'd say. At this point, I try to live every year as if it could be my last year on planet Earth, and I also might live to 90. So if I'm going to live to 90, I feel like I've got time. If this is my last year, I don't want to miss out on my own life. I don't want to be complacent.
Right.
So it's trying to balance those two elements.
Thank you.
Does that help?
That helps a lot. Yeah, it helps a lot. It's always about the balance. Can I ask you about the Happy AIDS memoir, the one that you're writing?
Yes.
Are you still writing it?
I'm working on it. It's gotten a little back shelved, back burner, because I'm working on another book that's sort of moved in front of it for the time being. But I'm still working on everything I write. I feel is going to end up in that. It's really, I'm a happy person. AIDS didn't take that away from me. One of the things that I'm very proud of, I do come from a family of optimists, so I guess, some of this is genetic or, environmental, whatever. My nephew, David Levithan, is a well-known young adult gay writer. He has written 16 novels. He's won 2 Lambda Awards. And we did a joint interview last year, and at one point it became apparent that the thing that we have in common is he wrote the first happy gay young adult novel. And I want to write the first happy AIDS memoir, in a sense, because we're sort of following our family, our lineage. Our lineage is about, let's look at what we can do with what we got. And it doesn't mean that tough stuff doesn't happen. I mean, I've been HIV positive for over 30 years. People in my family have been murdered. There's been suicide. There's been overdose. It's not all fun and games. And we tend to feel that we're doing okay, and that's So I think I was sort of given a gift of optimism and resilience, and if I can inspire or share that with someone, cool.
Well, that's a very good gift to have.
Yes.
I think another optimism. I'm not sure that I always have that, but one thing that I think is also key for me has always been curiosity.
Great.
I'm very curious, and I came out when I was 16 years old. I knew I was same-sex attracted, which is how I refer to it, because gay is an identity to me to some extent. But when I was 8 years old, 9 years old, I knew what was going on with me, and it was fine. I never really had conflict with that, and I came out very young. And I went through the things that a lot of young people do. with suicide, is
Yeah.
thinking about this. But my conflict really was knowing that I lived in a hostile culture. It wasn't that I didn't like myself, but I wanted to know what my life was going to look like a year from now. And that so many times that kept me going in the really dark times of my youth, because they were dark. They're not dark now, but I was really curious, like what's going to happen down the road. And
Well, I think that's your innate resilience too. Curiosity is whenever we're curious, we're our resources are present. And
yes.
I like to say that curiosity is the antidote to judgment. And when we're truly curious, we're not in judgment of ourselves or others. So whenever you stepped into curiosity, you were free to really see things and gather information. What a great innate skill.
Yes, that, and then just humor. I think humor is vital. A sense of humor and of being able to be amused.
Absolutely. Life is ridiculous, so we might as well laugh.
Yes.
I do the AIDS Mastery Workshop with the wonderful woman Sally Fisher, who created it back in the 80s, and we still do it sometimes 4 or 5 times a year in New York. And one of the things Sally always says that I love it, she says, we do serious work, but we don't take ourselves seriously.
Right.
We have to laugh. If I do a group, I hope that there will be laughter. I mean, that's part of it. It's like we can laugh through tears if we need to, but laugh.
The few times, and I won't keep you on much longer, but the few times when I've been, where I would say that I was truly depressed, were times that I had no sense of humor. Like nothing, not just made me laugh, but nothing amused me. And when my sense of humor was gone, I knew that I needed assistance of some kind.
Right. Well, it's also good to know, when this is when something's really off, and I know that, so I know enough to seek help. It's great. That's part of resilience too, is knowing you don't have to do it on your own all the time.
Absolutely. And I didn't have to do this podcast alone. I want to thank you. It's been really great to talk to you.
Is it over already?
It doesn't have to be. What else can we talk about?
Well, you're great in the sense that as you said, it's a conversation, and you have your story and your skills and your wisdom are so relatable. So I hope we get to do it again. That's all.
Well, can you tell people how to find your website and other things about that?
My website is robertlevithan.com, and that Levithan is Levithan. robertlevithan.com, and Friends in Deed is no spaces for the website, friendsindeed.org. You can find out about all the things we do there too.
Yeah, because I was curious. I know that how it started out, but has it expanded? Is it primarily for people with HIV, or?
Now it's for anyone with a life-threatening illness, or anyone who's caregiving for someone with a life-threatening illness, or someone who's dealing with grief and bereavement.
Okay.
And we have 2 drop-in groups every week, Monday at noon and Tuesday at 7 p.m. You just show up on time, and you can, have an experience of what we do. Everything's free, and you don't have to, it's anonymous if you want to be. It becomes the groups. You don't have to, identify yourself at all.
Is Samuel still involved?
He is. He still does a moving meditation group on Tuesdays at 5:30 at the present time.
If you happen to see him, tell him Mark McNeese said hello. I remember his apartment on 28th Street. I remember the walking, the mindful walking. It was all very helpful.
Great. Well, I have a feeling we've met before, because your name is very familiar, Mark. I have a feeling when we do meet again in person, we'll go, "Oh, you."
Well, and now I've got I'm sorry, you said your nephew, David Levithan?
David Levithan, yes. His latest book is Two Boys Kissing, won a Lambda Award, and actually it is about AIDS in part. It's a contemporary gay love story set around, based on a real incident, although he's not telling their story, but the longest kiss in history for the Guinness Book of Records was by 2 gay boys in New Jersey, and he uses that as a starting off point. But what is extraordinary is the contemporary action is commented on by a Greek chorus of ghosts of men who died of AIDS.
Oh, wow.
And so it brings our generation to the young people, and he did it really brilliantly.
Is he in New York?
He is. Yes.
If I look him up to be a guest or to feature his book, can I drop your name?
Absolutely. I'm sure. sure you can.
Okay.
And he's on Facebook as David Levithan for sure.
Oh, by the way,
reaching him, just let me know.
With the Lambda thing, by the way, I co-edited and published a collection of short stories and essays by LGBT writers over 50. It's called Outer Voices in Our Lives, and this morning I found out that we are a finalist for the anthology in the Lambda Literary Awards.
Yay,
so
bravo.
It's been a good day.
Yep.
Thank you again.
My pleasure.
And I'll send it to you when
it's
up.
I'm sure.
Yes. Have a good night.
Thank you, Mark.
Bye.
Bye.